Hi everyone, it's Ileana. Thanks so much for stopping by. I know that everyone is busy trying to get ready for the holidays, get their Christmas cards out, and get all their Christmas shopping done. I am so far behind, I am trying to get all my cards done. So I'm going to make multiples of these, and I'm going to show you how I do that. The first thing I did was I mounted the circle doodle background from Simon Says stamp onto my MISTI. I put the edge of the stamp at the 6-inch mark. That way I don't get too much of the pigment ink on my Post-it tape. Pigment ink takes a little bit to dry, and by avoiding stamping on my Post-it, I could reuse my Post-it for all of my cards. I'm not too worried about stamping on the bottom of the card because I'm going to cover it up with a strip of pattern paper. Now I've die cut several of these deer head, I think that's what you call it, from the Magical Christmas stamp set, also from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to stamp on my die cuts instead of stamping and then die cutting. It is so much easier to do it this way. What I did was I mounted my stamp, then I stamped it onto a piece of grid paper, and now I'm lining up that negative piece of the die cut so that I could just pop my dies in place and stamp. It's a lot easier to do it this way than to stamp and then try to position the die around the stamped image because you'll have to move that each time. And just by putting some magnets on that little piece, you're able to adjust it if it moves on you. I'm using vintage cream cardstock, and I am also using dark chocolate ink from Paper Tray. I'm also trying not to double stamp because I don't want the color to be a lot darker. And I'm doing the same thing for the banner. I stamped it in Scarlet Jewel, also from Paper Tray ink. I'm just centering my negative piece, and now I'm dropping in my die cut. This makes it so much faster when you're making multiples. I did get a little bit of ink on my die cut, and so I just used my sand eraser to get some of that stray ink off, and it didn't ruin my piece at all. Okay, now that I have all my stamping done, I'm going to look through this pad of paper. I don't even remember when I bought it. I just know that I have too much supplies and I need to just use some of it. I tend to hoard, so I am trying to use up my supplies. I picked out this green pattern paper, and I'm using the Take a Bow from Concord and Ninth. I'm going to use that to create some branches behind my deer head. So I've cut multiples of these, and I'm just laying them out on my desk. So I have all my die cuts all lined up. And now I'm going to take this large tag from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm just going to use some ledger paper to make my tag. Now the little piece of burgundy paper, that is actually just a scrap that I had laying around, so I'm just going to use it up. I believe it's from Basic Gray. I've inked up the edge of my pattern paper with some walnut stain. When you cut pattern paper, you get a white edge, and so I don't want it to show on my card, and so by inking it up, it kind of distresses it a little bit, makes it look a little more finished. Doesn't look so obvious that it was a freshly cut piece of paper. So I'm going to line up my strip to the bottom of my card, and then I'll just trim off any excess. Now I'm going to assemble my tag. It's much easier to assemble the tag and then to put everything onto the front of the card at once. So I'm just going to add some adhesive to the antlers. And I didn't add any adhesive to the bottom because I'm going to layer the little branches underneath and it'll be too bulky otherwise. Now I'm going to take the little branches and I'm going to just rip them apart with my finger because I'm just going to tuck them in underneath the deer head. I'm just adding a little bit of adhesive and then I'll just tuck them in behind. Now I'm just going to take that smaller branch and I'm just going to fill in anywhere that it's kind of bare. And now I'm going to add a little bit of multi-matte medium to hold everything down. There's no need to put any foam there because of the bulk from the branches. I'm going to add some foam adhesive to the back of the tag. And I like to add a lot of foam. I don't want it to come off, and then I also don't want it to get sunken in the mail. And so I'll just add a generous amount of the foam adhesive to the back. And because the branches are sticking out, it's a little bit easier to add to the front of the card. And I did realize that I forgot to add the distress ink to the edges. That way it doesn't look too clean. I got a little bit of a sponge mark up at the top, and so I'm just using my sand eraser to remove it, and you can't tell. Now I'm going to add that burgundy banner across. And because it's bulky, I only need to add foam adhesive to the very edges. And I'm trying to see where on the banner it needs the foam. So just on the edges, and then I'll just put a little bit of adhesive across the center. And even though this card has a lot going on, I still felt like it needed just a finishing touch. So I'm going to take some Pretty Pink Posh Sparkling Clear sequins. I'm using all three sizes, the 4, the 6, and the 8. And I already edited out the agonizing part of where to put the sequins, and so I am just putting in the part where I figured out where I want them to go. So I'm tucking them in, and then I'm just adding them on with my crystal katana. I did make a few variations of this card. I used Versamark instead of white pigment ink, and I also used the holiday background stamp from Simon Says Stamp. So I'm not sure if you could tell which ones those are, but I just thought it would be something a little bit different to change things up. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Bye.